Hi, this is the Democratic Alliance Labour Review of the week. Thank you for tuning in. It's the 10th of March 2023. As everyone knows, we're on the cusp of strike season. We're seeing an absolute nightmare around the country, and I want to speak about that today, Friday the 10th of March 2023. I'm going to go through some of the illustrious history of COSATU, the trade union movement, way back in the 70s and the 80s. I want to talk about the public service major strike, who are joining NAHAWU, the medical health system and their strike, the EFF joining in particular on the 20th of March, the umbrella bodies, COSATU and the other umbrella bodies such as SAFTU, starting to join hands, which is quite dangerous. The farm workers and the big strike that's going on in Villiersdorp, essential workers, maintenance service, the uselessness of the police and the army, and of course what Uncle Cyril said yesterday, where he reminded the trade unions, no work, no pay, the man who's got no backbone whatsoever. I am going to start off by saying the centre cannot hold, it doesn't hold. And in fact, we are facing a major problem across the country. So thank you for tuning in. It's Michael Bagraim. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance. As the Democratic Alliance, we are obviously worried about the situation. We're looking at alternatives, what we can do to try and help this situation. And of course, need to unpack what we will do when we go into government in a coalition in 2024. The idea, of course, is to ensure that the Democratic Alliance takes control and becomes the governing party, because we can't continue like this. If we have to continue like this beyond 2024, we've got real problems. So let's have a look at it. COSATU in the early days, and most people will remember if they're old enough or as old as me, remember how they were instrumental in ensuring that the apartheid government came to its knees. They did a good job in those early days. They had an illustrious history. Yes, it was tinged with some problems. There was some bloodshed, unfortunately, and there was insurrection that was going on, but there was a real reason. The apartheid government needed to come to its knees, and COSATU came to help to ensure that the government came to its knees. And this, of course, was rewarded by President Mandela in those early days by the inclusion in the Constitution. F.W. de Klerk also insisted on that at the time, that there would be labour rights, that the trade unions would have rights, there would be a right to strike, and there would be a right at the end of the day to fair labour practice. This was unpacked then in the Labour Relations Act, and quite rightly so. We had institutions, real illustrious institutions that came into being. We first had the Industrial Court, and then we had the CCMA, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, which to this day is still doing a good job, and they're trying their utmost to keep labour peace. Well, what are we facing? We're facing a government that, of course, has been duplicitous. They have lied to the trade union movement. They reneged on a 3-year agreement. You might recall this, the agreement was struck 4 years ago, was reneged a year ago. They then had a strike in the transport sector. They said they could not afford more than 3%. After a few days of strike, government collapsed and said, all right, they'll pay 6%. They're now talking to the public sector again, which is basically controlled by COSATU. Funnily enough, still in coalition with government. I don't know how that's working, but when people are in a coalition together, they're in a tripartite alliance, they call it, with the Communist Party, how they're going to war against each other is almost laughable if it weren't so serious. So it's Michael Bagraim, Labour spokesperson, Democratic Alliance, Friday the 10th of March 2023. So that tripartite alliance has to come to an end. And in fact, the Democratic Alliance will ensure that that does come to an end. You can't have an alliance between the biggest employer in the country and the biggest trade union. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you can't have an alliance between COSATU and government, which is the biggest employer in the country. And when we have that strike, and we probably will, we can see it'll be lightning. The real issue, of course, is that the government knows that if they don't have the support of COSATU in the elections in 24, they know that the governing party, the ANC, is not going to have the support of votes. And they've relied on COSATU's votes. And I have a really horrible feeling that the government might, at a certain stage, cave in completely. So, all right, we'll pay the 6%. They don't have the money. They can't hold good on it. They know that they'll be able to hold off until the elections, use the workers as cannon fodder, almost just buying them in so that they vote, and then straight after the elections say, sorry, we can't afford to pay you. This is going to happen. It's horrible script to write, but there we are. The medical health system, we've all been watching that very carefully, and we know there are problems, major problems, and we know how the staff have been treated. So we can see that it was a tinderbox. We could see that strike coming, and I'll tell you why. It doesn't help to go to work in absolutely horrific conditions. It doesn't help to go to work when you're getting a salary which unfortunately you can't make ends meet. And it also doesn't help that you've been treated like dirt. So you add that into the mix. You then got a government who are saying, no, we can't pay more than 3%. So where do you turn as a trade union? Well, they turn to a strike. Well, they can't strike. They can't strike at all, and I'll tell you why. There is law to say that you're not allowed to strike. You have an essential service. The health service is an essential service. You can't strike. They also have maintenance service. In other words, if an operation has to happen, it must happen. But the law's been ignored. They've even gone to court. The government went to court and got court orders. And yet things stay the same. People are being hurt. People are dying. The hospitals are falling apart. You can't get doctors in. You've seen horrible pictures and videos of nurses being threatened, doctors being threatened, patients being threatened. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And here we sit, 10th of March, 23, where there's been a court order, the law's against them, and the strike continues. Horrific. Well, add to that, you've got the EFF. Now, people are coming out with statements behaving like thugs. It's the only thing you can say. On the 20th, they're saying they're going to have this national strike. You've got to close your business. You've got to bring the economy to a standstill. Bring the country to a standstill. What are the police doing? Naught. What is the army doing? Naught. The Democratic Alliance would not in any way tolerance. There's no tolerance for this. There's absolutely no way that you can tolerate a threat of that nature. So they then, as a political party, join hands with the unions and say, let's destroy the system. Let's have a scorched earth. Let's destroy South Africa. Doesn't work. So we've now got different umbrella bodies of the trade unions who are representing different unions, holding hands and saying, yes, let's try and destroy the system. Doesn't make sense at all. We've got those workers, they're essential workers, they're maintenance service. There's policy. Absolute good policy is saying you can't do this, and we're having it. We, as Democratic Alliance, will have to go to court. We'll have to do whatever we can to actually stop this madness. Because if the centre doesn't hold, then we've got chaos in the country. I mean, it's unbelievable when you, as a party that says you respect democracy, like the governing party, they say they respect democracy, but they don't consult with the trade unions. They implement a 3% increase unilaterally when they know full well they haven't got anywhere at the moment with the discussions. They haven't come anywhere together in terms of being ad idem. And the reality is that the trade unions are angry, the government can't afford, and who stands in the middle? The people of South Africa, the citizens, they're suffering. We can't tolerate that. As the Democratic Alliance, we need to make sure that there's a new government in place in 2024. As the Democratic Alliance, we will consult properly with the trade unions. We will ensure that the terms and conditions of employment are right-sized. We'll also ensure that people are treated with respect, and people that don't want to work, want to go on illegal strikes, will be pushed out and dismissed. properly. And you can't have a country that is brought to its knees every time a union wants an increase. It doesn't work. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagraim, MP, Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson, the 10th of March 2023. Thank you.